Hello, everybody. Chris Hislop from the Montana World Affairs Council. And here is another What, So What, Now What, the International Affairs program, where we connect you with an expert on the issue of the day. And in 5 hot minutes, you become the expert. We're having a series of webcasts focusing on issues for Academic World Quest, which is the 3-day global education conference the Montana World Affairs Council sponsors that brings 300 of the best and brightest of Montana students to the campus each fall. We're doing this in partnership with UM's International Development Studies program. And so our experts are students in that program. And amongst them is Rosalie Carter. Rosalie, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Rosalie, I'm loving life. We're heading into the holidays and taking some time off, but you and I are going to speak a little bit before then on this very interesting nexus between migration and climate. It's not something that we hear a lot of. We hear them separately about climate. We hear about migration, but we don't often hear about them together. Could you tell our viewers a little bit about what this means?
Absolutely. So yes, the understanding of climate migration is a relatively new concept in the field of migration and climate change. And so with that, I believe, a few quick points about climate change is that, greenhouse gas concentrations are at the highest levels that they have been in 2 million years. And with that, we are seeing warmer temperatures and they continue to rise. And with the increase in temperature, because Earth is a system of interconnected systems, everything affects everything. And so with that brings intense droughts, water scarcity, which will lead to food insecurity, severe fires, which we are no stranger to here in Montana, and rising sea levels, flooding, melting polar ice, catastrophic storms, etc. And so with all those disastrous effects of climate change, it often displaces people due to, of course, flooding, fires, etc. And that is causing people, rising sea levels are one of the main sources, for urbanization in coastal areas and whatnot. People are wanting to move more inland to places like Montana that has more of a temperate climate and more inland from the dangers of rising sea levels.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Rosalie, you make a very interesting point there about, the interconnectedness of these issues and the issues surrounding climate, because the next question, which is, how does this affect us? Well, it affects us in many different ways. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about that. And with us being here in Montana, how does this issue, the connection between climate and migration, affect us here in this state?
Absolutely. It affects us a variety of ways. We are seeing climate change with our worsening fire conditions and whatnot, as well as migration and internal displacement within Montana to those who have lost their homes in wildfires, or with the people moving in from coastal regions and whatnot. And so that provides a variety of challenges for us in terms of housing development, accessibility to food and employment and assistance programs and all sorts of things. That is also an interconnected system of things, and it's affecting millions of people around the world are being displaced by a number of global climate disasters.
Yeah, I mean, it's to a certain extent here in Montana, but as you say, around the world, people are being affected by this. And an interesting fact here is that those who are affected are oftentimes those with the least amount of resilience to deal with these kinds of things. So those who are of a lower socioeconomic, place in their lives are typically now living in these more marginal areas that suffer the brunt of natural disaster and climate related weather patterns. So that's and to a certain extent, as you say, here in Montana as well. Now, We finished COP26 not too long ago. There was a number of outcomes regarding climate, but looking ahead on this one, Rosalie, is it all doom and gloom? Is it, or what can we see in the immediate and the long term on this issue?
It can appear to be dismal looking at some of the facts, but there are great efforts being done by a variety of organizations to delay or lessen the effects of climate change. The UN has these sustainable development goals that involve about 17 different factors to affect, sustainability for the future, and some of them involve reducing, one of the biggest goals is reducing emissions by 2050, having net zero emissions. And for that to be effective, we have to reduce it by half by 2030. And of course, when I first read that, I thought 2030 sounded like a year from the far off future, but that is only 8 years away, roughly. And we also have things such as the Paris Agreement, which is, a coalition of nations working together, and it happens every 5 years with increasing actions being taken to thwart climate change and its effects. So by, as we can do efforts, just you, me, and everyone, by reducing our emissions, reducing trash and water use and whatnot, as well as large industrial international goals of reducing fossil fuel production and other things that lead to greenhouse emissions that are warming the planet and leading to these issues.
Right. Well, Rosalie, we've done a number of these programs on climate related issues. And I thank you and I thank others, because every time we've had one of these, I do come away with a sense of optimism, rather than this is hopeless, there's nothing we can do. Usually the guests like yourself say, look, there are a number of very concrete and specific things individuals, communities, nations, and the planet can do to mitigate the effects of climate change. So thanks a lot for informing us on this very interesting nexus and giving us a little better perspective on what that means. Let me also thank our very generous sponsors, the Dennis and Phyllis Washington Foundation, Allegiance, and Stockman Bank, who help us bring this and many more programs to you and everyone across Montana. Rosalie, thank you so much for joining our show, and special thanks to the International Development Studies program at the University of Montana for partnering on this series. Thank you to all of the viewers. Be well, take care. Bye-bye.